When you play standard chess, you just play against an opponent without thinking about the game mode since there is only one set of rules. But when you play 4-player chess, you must choose a game mode, whether it's FFA or teams. Those two are very different even though you play on 160 squares that contain 64 pieces. You might believe that the only difference is the points, but that is too broad and it is more than this. In this video, we'll compare the difference between teams and FFA and why I would choose FFA over teams. Don't forget to subscribe to Quadra Cross and share the video to spread the existence of 4-player chess. First, let's go over the rules. In FFA, everyone is an enemy and you win based on the points, whereas in teams, the person facing you is your teammate and you just have to checkmate one of the opponents for victory. Unlike in FFA, you don't need to worry about every single piece that you lose because what matters is checkmating one of the enemies. In other words, if your teammate is checkmated and you haven't lost a single piece, then you're defeated. In FFA, every single piece that you lose will give some points to someone, depending on the value of the piece. Regarding the checkmate, you cannot make a move that will put your king in check regardless of the game mode, commonly known as illegal move, which is not a surprise. Both in FFA and teams, you can capture the king directly, although this is not very common. In teams, you cannot make a move that will put your teammate's king in check, otherwise it would be an illegal move. In FFA, since there is no team, you can make a move that will lead to a check of an enemy's king, which will be checked and captured by someone else but not you. In FFA, if you're stalemated, you get 20 points whether you're eliminated or not from the game. In team games, if one of these teammates is stalemated, then the game ends as a stalemate. In FFA, if you run out of time, then you are eliminated from the game regardless of your points. In teams, if one of the teammates runs out of time, then the entire team loses the game. In FFA, the pawn is promoted into a queen on the 8th square. In teams, it takes 3 more moves to promote your pawn into a queen. So far, I have never seen a pawn promoted into a queen in a team game. Just keep in mind that it is almost impossible to get a second queen in a team game because it takes almost forever. Oppositely, I've seen numerous pawns promoted into a queen in FFA. En passant exists in both modes. Unlike in 1 vs 1, en passant only works with the pawn in front of the rook. For example, let's say you play as red. If you push the pawn in front of the rook, and green pushes the pawn double square in front of the knight, then you can only take green's pawn diagonally toward the right. En passant doesn't work with the pawn in front of the knight. Visually, it should be possible, but I have no clue why chess.com systematized the rule this way. Mathematically, it would be impossible to do an en passant move with any other pawns, excluding the one in front of the rook and the knight. Now, let's move on to strategies and tactics. Whether you play FFA or teams, the opening is slightly different. The most common opening in teams is pushing a pawn 1 square to open a path for the queen, or a path for the queen and the bishop in front of the king by pushing a pawn 1 square. In FFA, you see players pushing the pawn 2 squares instead of 1. There are also players opening a path for the bishop, aiming to capture the rook. In contrary, you won't see this kind of opening in team games. Quickmates are very common against beginners in both modes, but it can be prevented in case your teammate is an experienced player who will guide you. Your colleague could sacrifice the queen or the bishop to prevent the checkmate, so the player who plays next cannot checkmate you. Let's take this game as an example. Red begins the game by pushing a pawn 1 square in front of the bishop. Blue pushes 1 square as well to open a path for the bishop and the queen. Yellow does the same move as the teammate, and so does green. Now, red moves the queen behind the pawn, aiming on green. Blue realizes that a distraction must be created in order to prevent green from being checkmated by yellow. So, blue checks yellow. And yellow takes the bishop with the queen. Then green simply opens a path for the queen. If blue haven't created the distraction, then red and yellow could have probably won the game. Let's go back to the previous move. It was actually a mistake. Yellow should have taken blue's bishop with the knight or the bishop, because if green didn't prevent red or yellow's queen, then yellow and red would have won the game within few moves. Regardless, the point of showing this game as an example is to demonstrate that a distraction plays a crucial role in a team game. In the past, there was a beginner who teamed up with me, and that player told me to guide every single move, after advising few moves. If you are new to 4PC and jump into a team game, you might become a puppet of your teammate, so I would highly recommend to avoid playing team game until you familiarize yourself with FFA. The quickmates work only against beginners both in FFA and teams. It doesn't work against players with a rating close to 2000 or more. You might find yourself in a situation where you have to sacrifice your pieces, especially your queen or your bishop, to save your teammate. In teams, you will see very often players throwing out their pieces to prevent their teammate being checkmated, which is not the case in FFA since everyone is on their own. Now, let's move on to time. How long does a team game takes? It depends. Rapid is the most common time frame for FFA and teams. A team game can end in less than a minute, which is something impossible in FFA unless the game is aborted. If all players are experienced, it can take up to maximum 20 minutes. For FFA Rapid, it takes at least 10 to 20 minutes. Some games can last over 30 minutes. So far, we did the comparison of team and FFA. Why would I choose FFA over team? There are 3 reasons. The first one is due to the independence. In FFA, there's no such thing as team, so you don't have to worry about someone else getting checkmated like in a team game. If you lose, then the only person to blame is yourself. In a team game, you'll face the 6 following situations, and I'm going to explain you in detail. 1. Your teammate refuses to cooperate and plays as if you don't exist. Some players don't care about teamwork, so they just play on their own. Some of them are trolling, like you see in many other video games.
Hey, you almost caught! T1! Thrash! Thrash!
3.
Don't, no, don't. That's my boy.
Ah, you fucker.
Unfortunately, you cannot win a team game without the help of your ally, unless the adversary is dumb enough to make stupid mistakes. If you could manage to win on your own without the help of your trolling teammate, then you're lucky. 2. Your teammate runs out of time and you lose the game. In a rapid game, you have plenty of time to think, but if you take too long, you might lose on time. You'll have to argue with your teammate, which is how the time drains quickly. I had teammates who took too long to make a move, and that player was eliminated on time, so I lost the game. Yes, it really sucks when you lose a game due to your teammate who ran out of time. 3. Your teammate resigns since there is no potential of winning. In a team game, if your ally decides to resign, then it is no different as if your team is resigning. In case you see an unpredictable checkmate, sure, your teammate can resign because there is no difference between checkmate and resignation since both of them will lead to defeat. But there are players resigning even though there is no indication of checkmate. 4. You or your ally accidentally make moves that facilitate the enemy team to win. Anyone can make a mistake, but some mistakes are detrimental, which can lead to a strategic advantage for the enemies. When your teammate makes a mistake, then it damages your team's power. But it doesn't mean you will lose a game. Yes, the probability of victory will decrease, but don't generalize the result even though the game is not over because any enemy can make a game-changing error. 5. You try to save your ally from a checkmate, but it became a disaster. When you see a potential checkmate, you will try to save your teammate without sacrificing any of your valuable pieces depending on the situation, but sometimes things might not work as you expect. It could be the opposite, which means your ally can try to save you, but it will not always work. Unfortunately, you'll end up losing the game. 6. You are obliged to sacrifice your key pieces since your ally is a complete beginner and you must guide every single move. If you are an experienced player, you will end up teaming up with a beginner at some point. You can choose your teammate if you play with a friend, but if you don't, it will be assigned randomly. Since beginners have no clue how to play, you'll have to sacrifice your bishop or your queen to save the game at the beginning. When one of your key pieces die, it will give your opponent team a tactical and a strategical advantage. Also, your teammate might ask you to guide every single move since he or she is a complete beginner. In other words, you are controlling 2 colors in the game, or should I say you have a puppet?
Strings your arms is free to love me by the side of Z. Yeah, 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 if you would do, I'd boost my strings for you.
The more team games you play, the more it will become impossible to evade these situations. I'm not trying to discourage you or telling you to avoid playing. I'm just letting you know the harsh reality. On the other hand, you won't have to face these situations in an FFA game. You just need to worry about yourself. The second reason is the length of the game. From my experience, many team games end in less than 3 minutes. A team game is like playing the standard chess, except there are 2 players in a team. In some cases, a team game can end in less than a minute, which gets repetitive and bored sometimes. FFA games are obviously longer than this. Nevertheless, the annoying part is that some games can take up to 40 minutes. I'm not gonna stick too much about the time since this is a video for another time. The third reason is the fact that FFA is more thrilling than team games. In FFA, the game goes on until one person remains alive. In teams, once a player is checkmated, the game is over. If you play with a friend, then it could be fun, but the majority of time I had to team up with a random player. Or you can invite a player who was your teammate in the game that you just played right after the battle ends, but it's not the same as if you play with someone you know personally. Sometimes, the winner is unpredictable in FFA because anyone can make a game-changing mistake regardless of the points. In contrary, when you see a checkmate within few moves and there seems to be no way to prevent, the result of the game is obvious. In FFA, if one player is eliminated, then you just continue the game as long as you are alive and it will simplify your game. FFA is actually more stressful than teams, but you won't face any situations mentioned above. I don't get too excited when I play a team game because I have to be ready to face the situation I explained. In contrary, I get excited to play FFA even though it is stressful sometimes. Even if I'm eliminated early, sometimes I stick until the end to find out the winner. We cover on the differences between 4-player chess FFA and teams. Now, go play 4-player chess on chess.com and comment below your opinion whether you prefer FFA or teams. As always, thanks for watching and share the video to spread about 4-player chess. See you next time.